Hello, everybody, and happy Monday. This is No More Mondays, the podcast where we believe you can have a thriving career or business and an amazing life on your terms. And as always, I am your host, Angie Callan, and today's episode is brought to you by my book. Scary Good Discovering Life Beyond the Sunday Scaries is officially out and in the world and available to you wherever books are sold. So if you are ready for some inspiration to get you into a better place in life and work, head on over to scarygoodread.com and grab your copy. And now let's get into some No More Mondays action. Today, I am talking to Vicki Landers. She is a speaker, a coach, and founder of In Progress Coaching, where she helps professionals reconnect with purpose, lead with clarity, and figure out what's next when the old version of us starts to feel a little stale. Vicki's got a rare combo of life and leadership experience that I appreciate, along with her straight up great energy that gets me fired up, which is why I am excited to bring her on the show today. Vicki, welcome to No More Mondays.
Woohoo! Thank you. I'm excited to be here. This is gonna be a good time.
Vicki and I are connected via a really cool little network of other like conscious entrepreneurs, a few of whom you've met. Nilu Kaur's been on the show. And I always love getting to connect with people who are very thoughtful about business. And one of the things that I appreciate about Vicki is when she talks about this idea of being more purposeful, it doesn't necessarily have to be like all drama to get yourself there. Because we know those people. I might be one of them. And if you've read my book, you know about this, that maybe went the dramatic route. But there are others who kind of start to slowly realize something feels off. And Vicki, I know this is somewhere that, from the stage and in coaching, you like to speak about, because it might not be this very clear, burnout or toxic boss. Sometimes it can be something more internal that's telling us if something's off and what used to light us up fizzles. So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about your experience working through that realization yourself and how you got through that what once worked doesn't work anymore phase.
Yeah, so that's actually a fascinating one because that's what took me to leave corporate healthcare. So I'm a physical therapist who worked in leadership and management. I like to flip that around, management and then leadership. Yeah, there's a difference.
There is a difference. That's an entirely different and standalone episode if we would like to have it.
Yeah. So when I was doing that, and then I did some shifting into actually IT and like IT translation from clinical to IT, and that was a great thing. But I also started to recognize that there was that the direction that my role was going to take wasn't really where I wanted to go. It wasn't a bad direction. It's just I wanted to be talking with people and I wanted to be working more with people. And my role was shifting more into, no, you're analyzing software and you're discovering bugs and you're fixing bugs. And I'm like, but I want to be teaching people. I want to be like working with people about their frustration with the software and helping them be less frustrated, not actually working on the software. So that's sort of, I knew that there was something that I needed to shift before my role changed entirely. So that was when I decided that's when I left the healthcare organization where I worked and started actually using my coaching skills and my coaching training and my coaching certification. That was the thing that was just sort of sticking. I didn't like where I was headed or where the organization was headed for me.
Oh, and here's the thing is I think some people take that situation and just say, I kind of like have no choice, right? I have to take this direction. I have to stay with this organization. This is the career path. Like we should all over ourselves, right? And there's almost like this guilt of changing a trajectory that we have a really hard time reconciling. And that's why I think some people stay way too long and they hit that big breaking point. They hit the rock bottom versus listening to this like maybe slow burn that was going on. So what did you do when you made that realization that things were diverging?
I actually wanted to speak to something you just said before we answer that question.
Yes, go ahead.
It's this recognition that it happens to so many people in healthcare because they've like done all of the things they intended to do. Like I got this training, I got this certification, I've reached this level of education, and I'm 45 years old. What now? And so they have that moment of, I've got another 20 years in the workforce. and I don't have any more direction. I
Okay.
don't have any more goals. I'm sort of lost. And so that I see that happen to people over and over again when they've met everything that they wanted to, and then they're like, what now?
Yep.
So now let's return to what the question was. What was the question?
I don't know, because your answer was even better, but I'm curious I think the question was about how you worked through that yourself.
Oh, well, it was hard because I grew up, you know, and I had this you go to high school and you graduate high school, you go to college, you graduate college, you find somebody, you get married, then you have babies. And I stopped at after the getting married and not the babies thing. But it was like in my head, these were the things that you did. And I didn't know there were alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere along the line of deciding I needed to no longer be married to the person I was married to, that was where I sort of shifted there are other alternatives to this path that I've told myself that other people expect of me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was hard to let go of this is what you're supposed to do. And I suffered most of that when I was in the middle of my divorce. It was like, I'm supposed to be married. I'm supposed to, or actually a little bit of that, I'm supposed to have kids. So it was a long time, that I was like letting go of these ideas of what I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started just looking so when I talk a lot about the lens that we wear. Oh, wow.
Love it.
And the different lenses that we can see situations through. So like the situation where my job was going to be changing. Well, I could see it through this victim lens of, oh, well, I guess that's what I have to do. Or I could look through it. What other opportunities are there? Well, I have a coaching I'm a physical therapist. I have a coaching certification. I have led
Mm-hmm.
teams. I have done project management. There are other things out there that I can do. They're scary, but you know what? Scary is just excitement in disguise.
Spelled differently. You kicked off all of that with a very important thing I'd like to reinforce, and that was that it was hard. And that is the thing that I think keeps a lot of people in a stalemate with themselves versus either full potential or change. It isn't necessarily the signs, it's ignoring the signs, or saying I don't want to deal with the signs because it's going to be hard. It's going to take time. We have a primal fear as humans of just like, we don't like change. However, nothing's going to change if you don't change. And I think it's a really important thing to say. If I don't like where I'm at, I need to do something in order to shift the paradigm. And that doesn't necessarily mean burning down everything that you've ever been or ever was. There may be alternative ways to honor the career you've built, but give yourself permission to lean into something new. And it sounds like that is really what you did.
Yeah, it's so funny. I have a friend who what she says is everything can be hard. Choose your hard.
Choose your hard.
Yeah. Did I want to stay in a job that I didn't look forward to doing any longer, that didn't challenge me, or did I want to take this leap of working for myself? And I chose my hard, but I did it by choice, consciously, which is something that as humans, yes, we tend to be afraid, but we also like to be in control of our own lives. We don't like to have change thrust upon us, but when we choose our change, we respond to it differently.
Yeah.
And so that's why I liked being in leadership. That's why I did like management, because I was a lot of times the facilitator and the choosing of the change. And I'm like, I like to choose my change.
Yeah. Well, and the choose your heart. I mean, here's the thing. What's the saying? It was a CrossFit promotional campaign a few years ago. It was easy choices, hard life, hard choices, easy life.
Ooh,
and what that means is if you don't actually make the hard choices at the beginning and you go the easy route, we're healthcare people. We were talking about healthy lifestyles earlier. The easy thing is to eat 12 cookies a day. You eat 12 cookies a day and now you have to lose 10 pounds. The harder thing is to have willpower and resist 11 of the 12 cookies, because then it's easier not to have to lose the weight. However, we can apply that to these like larger, more substantial, like life and career professional decisions, because oftentimes we just actually don't even make the choice at all, right? We don't choose any hard, we don't choose anything. And in doing so, that actually becomes a choice and keeps you in the vicious cycle of sameness.
Yeah, oh yes. So I have a friend who is now since deceased, but he used to say, and I love this, time is going to pass.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. There's going to be December 31st of 2026. It's going to happen. Are you going to do the same things and have the same results, or are you going to do something different? Because the time is going to pass. What do you want it to be at the end of that next year that it's not right now? And I love, and I get that I'm in the minority here, but I love to think about outcomes and like ramifications. And, so if I do this, what am I going to feel like on the other side?
Yeah.
And I like to do that, but there's a lot of people who like to hide from that.
Yes.
They don't want to think about what's going to be like on the other side.
And they definitely don't want to think about, if I don't do this, how am I going to feel?
Right. Yes. If I do or I don't, let's look at what's going to happen on the other side and talk about what's the possibilities there. Because then you can start talking about actual possibilities.
Yes.
If
And
I
also,
do this, how am I going to feel?
I think, yes. And I think you start debunking things, right? Because one, there's this idea that like we just go into like the giant fear response of change just through the word. There are infinite scales of change. You can change your shirt, you can change where you live, right? Like there's different scales. But I think that we have one level of fear response to all of them if we don't stop and start asking those kinds of questions, like, okay, if I choose this, what are the potential outcomes? Good. What's the worst case scenario? And how likely is that worst case scenario to actually happen? And if it does, what do I do about it? And what do I know? Right? Because we catastrophize these things and don't actually look at the real likelihood of the worst case scenario coming to pass.
That's actually one of my favorite questions to ask people is, what is the absolute worst thing you can imagine? And then the follow up with, and how likely is that? Yeah. Then the follow up is, what's more likely to happen? And then all of a sudden people actually start to think about, oh, okay, what's more likely is just that, oh, it's just that I'm uncomfortable.
Uh-huh.
It's just that I'm taking a little bit of a risk. I mean, I quit my house and sold my job, not in that order. I sold my house and quit my job, so that I could, like, that was, so that I could open my own business. 10 years ago, I never would have imagined doing something like that. And though there are lots of struggles, I wouldn't change what I've done. Not in a heartbeat.
Lived in a bus. That's our made the big decision, right? We consolidated. Part of it was out of need, but then it also became a beneficial keep your cost of living as low as possible so that you can actually, have some breathing room to grow a business. And, whether it's a living situation, whether it's moving, whatever it is, we are really good at getting caught up in like golden handcuffs that keep us from having the ability to change. But all of that is a choice, right? It's not being willing to say, hey, I will live a little leaner for a year to have the thing. But ultimately where I want to go is a little bit of counter to all of this, because you and I are examples of, let's say, less risk averse people making decisions around more substantial changes. Not everyone is. And I think we have to be careful of kind of perpetuating the myth that you have to have these massive reinventions in order to have change. But again, I said earlier, there's different scales of change and they can feel differently to you. So for some people, it's new job, new title, new city, new house, completely like doesn't even look like it did 20 years ago life. In my world, it was totally rebirth from rock bottom, which all of you have heard a lot about. But I also think, and Vicki, I know this is a perspective that you also have and speak to, this idea that like we don't necessarily have to clean the slate. Sometimes we just need to kind of like reconnect with what we're already doing or do what we're already doing in a slightly different way. So talk to me more about that and this like almost anti-pressure to reinvent.
I love how you phrased this. This is awesome. So I talk to healthcare professionals. So one of the things that I talk about is the fact that, yeah, healthcare, it sucks right now. When you're working
Oh,
in healthcare, you have pressures from administration, from regulations, from payment, from productivity, unhappy coworkers, unhappy demanding patients. You got all of this, and yet you still get to show up. You get to be there and you get to serve, and that's honestly just the tiniest little shift in how you see the world you work in will make a huge difference in how you show up and your satisfaction. Just
yeah.
making it goes back to my lens choice. What choices do you have? And that's, first of all, that's the first thing, is recognizing that you do have choices. You may not want to make another one, and that's fine, but you do have some choices
Yes.
in how you see and how you treat people, and whether you're going to show up with, you're going to
Mhm.
wear your compassion lens that day, or you're going to wear your curiosity lens, or maybe you're going to wear your conflict lens, but you're wearing it on purpose. And when we start to pick them on purpose,
Mm-mm.
then we like to have control. So if we pick things on purpose, then we have that control, and it's not a massive change. It's just a little shift in how you see the experiences and the events that are happening around you.
I feel like you just gave me a one-liner that is you just gave me some things came together that I've never said in the following way. I think that perspective is the easiest, smallest, highest ROI change you can make.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Period.
Yes. It doesn't cost much,
Nope.
and it's possible.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I talk about, is how it can be possible. How, if you I love to do this little game, and it's here's an event. What are the different ways to see this event? And so whether, for a healthcare organization, they've just decided to upgrade your software, and it's happening tomorrow, and it's going to change your workflows. There's all sorts of different ways you can approach that.
Mhm.
And so when you start to recognize and being able to approach events in a different way, it, it just opens up so
Yeah.
much. Like, it creates comfort, it creates choice. So I have people do an activity where they do that just during the day, low
Yep.
stress, no stakes environment, thinking about what's going on and how they're reacting to it. And when you practice that, see, this is the cool thing, is when you practice this, then when a high stakes something comes up, like you find out
Yep.
your health insurance is going to quadruple or something like
We may
that.
have talked about that before the show started, but I'm not biting right now because otherwise this will turn into a 20-minute rant.
Yeah. But when we find out the things that are high stress, then I can take that practice of taking the events and seeing what different
Yeah.
ways I can look at it.
Yeah, don't wait for the big thing to go, "Oh, I think I need to have a different perspective on this," because that ultimately is gonna be harder. But you
Oh, yeah.
can retrain, and there is science and there is research and studies out there about the power of positive thinking. And that's in a nutshell, that's a little bit of what this is that, a long time ago in probably the first 50 episodes of No More Mondays, I had a guest named Michael who said the following line. He was like, "You can choose to look at things and which is the victim mentality of why is this happening to me, which is what I would attest that most people out there say when bad things happen. Or you could say, how is this how is this happening for me?" Right? So you can either choose to be the victim, or you can choose to say, what kind of lemonade can I make from these lemons? And that is this lens that we're talking about, with a perspective shift that can really help with the stuckness, because maybe you're where you're supposed to be, you just need a different perspective on it. And that's an easy change to make.
Yeah. What am I learning from this? Now, that I don't want to negate the fact that bad things happen, and
Yes.
we react to bad things. And it is perfectly normal to feel like a victim at times, and to feel like you need to blame and complain. We need to sit with that.
Yes.
And after we've had a chance to sit with that and acknowledge that it's okay to feel the things that we're feeling,
Mhm.
then we can step into the whole what's another perspective I can take on this after we've had a chance to feel the feelings? Because
Yeah,
one of the
you
things
can't go all the way to toxic positivity.
right.
However, there's a whole bunch of ground in between those two extremes
Yeah.
that don't require, going all the way down the awful rabbit hole, or never doing anything about it, never shifting the perspective and just accepting circumstances as they are and not exercising. I really like to think that we have more agency and more control over our lives and careers than we realize, and certainly than we take. And I think this is a good example of, when things either aren't going your way, or really, bad stuff happens, you find what you can control, and that does require a certain perspective, a certain lens.
Yeah. And it's we just, I always come back to the Viktor Frankl quote, which I'm certain people have quoted on your show many times, but it's the between stimulus and response, there's a space.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, if a gentleman in a internment camp can find a space to choose his response, that gives me hope.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody in that situation has the capacity to have hope and to recognize that he has choice over his own thoughts, like, dang, the rest of us do too. We can do
The rest
this.
of us, yes, exactly. Which I think this is a good time to start thinking about, because we've really rooted this in the lens that we have. And we've talked about maybe some of the small things that you can do if you're out there thinking something doesn't feel right, but you're not necessarily the risk tolerant person that is going to just, sell your house or move into a bus, right? So, but I know that part of that change and the struggle can often be the shifting role in the identity change that's attached to some things. Like we talked about, like if you've been a healthcare professional all your life, that's an identity that you have connected yourself and your worth to. But I think that this goes beyond the professional world, because it can happen like leading a team. It can happen raising a family. We talked about before we came on the sandwich generation stuff that's happening right now. And so I would love to hear from you on kind of advice around that shifting identity, shifting role as we try to navigate this change and the perspective that we have on it.
Oh, wow. So identity is something this is something that I'm really newly looking into and understanding about, is that we say, I'm a leader, I'm a manager,
Yep.
I'm a physical therapist, I'm a mom. And those things, believe it or not, though they help us feel good because it kind of gives us some grounding, they're also very limiting.
They're what we do. They're not who we are.
Right. And so we put ourselves in these little boxes. And then one of the things that can happen is if I choose to move into a different box, I try to take that old identity with me. And sometimes the strengths that we had in that old identity don't necessarily serve us in this new identity. So now we're going to talk about the sandwich generation thing. So I am the daughter of somebody who is 87 years old. I live 15 minutes away from her, but I'm also a healthcare professional by background. And so when I am helping my mother, I am still really in the middle of navigating, who am I?
Yeah.
Am I the person who understands the aging adult healthcare ecosystem, all the things that can go wrong, all the things that need to be thought about, all the things that can go right, and how I want to make them go right? Or do I think about it as her daughter of 50 plus years, and that relationship? Am I her admin? Am I her healthcare advocate? Am I her daughter? And really trying to figure out, and I think this is my personal opinion, is that this is specifically hard for people who work in healthcare who have all of this extra knowledge.
Yeah, you know too much.
Right, exactly. We way know too much. But I just think it's interesting, is like what identity and how that can be limiting, and how we can make them ands. I am a daughter and a professional, which gives us an opportunity to do great things. But it's a shift, and it's a change that I didn't necessarily recognize was happening around me, but it has.
And it's becoming, I've talked to people who, whether they're in healthcare or not, are struggling with taking on the caregiver identity, whether they know too much or not. That is now essentially a new identity that they're taking on. Again, I attest it is something that you do. It is very important, something that you do. And it happens at both ends of the cycle, right? I think parents experience that at various stages of child rearing, and then it comes full circle, and we start to experience that extra label when we turn into caregiver of kind of like aging parents. And I think that we struggle with how to, like, again, it comes back to like lenses, right? Struggling with how to add another lens or add this other identity without either diluting it or it overshadowing or overtaking the other things that we are.
Yeah. And yeah, how to work it and weave it into our
Yeah.
lives. And it can make our lives richer. I mean, because it is about relationships. This caregiver responsibility is about, the relationship that you have. But how to weave that into everything else that's within your life. I believe that part of the reason that I have chosen what I've chosen is so that I can actually do the things for my mom that I do for her now.
Mhm.
This wasn't intentional. This is just how the universe has
Yeah.
lined things up for me. But I believe that because I have the flexibility to do a lot of stuff that if I had a regular job, I would be on intermittent FMLA and I would be, running around doing things that I don't have to do right now because
Yeah.
I could just do. So yeah, it's like how to meld as we shift. And even, even parents, you're a parent of an infant, and then you're a parent of a toddler, and then you're a parent of a preteen. All of those are very different
Mhm.
demands.
Yep.
And we tend to hear the labels of as such.
Yep.
But it is this constant change. Just the child rearing one, I think, is a constant change that people are like expecting. Whereas the providing care to the parents, that sometimes feels like it came out of the blue, not thinking
Even though
about.
the parents are not getting any younger, but I agree with you, right? It's I think it's because of the way, like, one is ascending and one's descending, and you never know where in that descent you're going to have to like step in. But I love that even though we're talking about something that could be considered kind of morbid, which is like, we're all going to experience it, people. We're all going to experience it. I think there's something really beautiful in, again, the lens that you can take and apply to say, okay, I could be mad about having to, go take care of mom, or I could say, hey, I get to do this for her since she did it for me 50 something years ago.
Yeah. And it all ends up being a choice. Now, do I get frustrated sometimes? Yeah. Um, I'm I'm always ordering things. but but it's more positive than negative.
Yeah.
This it's recognizing that this is a season of life, and that's a phrase that I think a lot of people are using right now, is like, what
Yep.
season are you in?
Yeah.
And everybody's season is different, and yet everybody's season is the same. We're all going through. We're all more alike than we are different because we're all
Yeah.
born, we all live, we all die.
Yep. And I think it's we're all going to experience the same or very similar seasons. We're
Mhm.
just going to experience them at different times and in different ways. And I'm curious to bring this kind of full circle back to where we started in this idea of kind of like leadership and your career identity and when things don't fit and trying to get yourself to a better place. I'm curious what these personal experiences have really kind of taught you, or even what you take back to, speaking and coaching from them.
One of them is just the concept of giving ourselves grace. That's a big one for me, that I need to remind myself, is that, you know, I've been successful at everything I've done because look, I'm still here. And I've learned something, and it's about giving grace to the things that maybe haven't turned out like I wanted them to.
Mhm.
I'm not out there making $1 million coaching people. That's not my trajectory at the moment. And
And if you were, you wouldn't have time to take care of mom, right? Like, that's one of just those things.
exactly. Yeah. So it's recognizing the season and accepting it for just, and not like tolerating it, but like actually accepting it and being like,
Mhm.
hey, this really is the space I'm in right now. And I live in a super cute 860 square foot apartment that I can leave and not have to worry about because there's no yard to take care of. And there's so much that's good that I can choose what I focus on. I can choose the good. I can choose the fact that my mom's 15 minutes away from me. I can choose the fact that I'm actually getting to coach people that I want to coach, that I'm getting to be on stages and impacting people's lives, because it's always been my point when I was teaching continuing ed for PTs and OTs, or when I speak now. The whole point is to be on stage and to teach somebody something that when they leave, they've got something to do or think differently that makes a difference in their own life or the lives of the people that they touch. I mean, that's like the whole point. And I'm like, this is not me blowing smoke. This is like what I so truly believe. This is why I want to interact with people. I want to make things better for them.
Yeah. This is why you and I get along right away, right? Humans still matter. Let's make humans' lives better. Right. And if somebody out there, let's make sure they can find you and get and tune into this stuff to get their life to be better. So where can people find you and learn more about like the work you do? Maybe tap into your lens shifting methodology. How can we find and follow all the wonderful things you're doing?
LinkedIn is the best place to find what I'm writing and what I'm posting. So I'm Vicki Landers on LinkedIn. I have a website, vickilanders.com, which is my speaking website. I also happen to have inprogresscoaching.com, which is my coaching website. But honestly, just send me an email, vicki@vickilanders.com.
There you go.
Super easy.
We will link to all of it. So you have all the ways to follow and connect with Vicki. She and I are similarly active on LinkedIn, so you can also follow her in my network. Yes. But I love this idea that we have not directly mentioned the following, but I want to highlight it here, is that how much interaction and intertwinement there is between the personal and the professional lives, strengths, and perspective in this whole conversation. And that's something that's really important to me from a messaging perspective, because I think we are beyond the days of compartmentalizing our lives and careers. And I am really helping, I really want to help people integrate them so that your life and work can complement instead of compete. And how important is that if you want to be able to, serve the caregiver role when it comes up, or, be able to have these lenses that shared perspective across the board. And so I wanted to kind of bring that together as something that we didn't tackle directly, but is an undercurrent in everything that we talked about today.
So I love that you said this, because I believe that we live a life.
Yep.
And I don't want vacation to be a separate concept. I don't want work to be a separate concept. I'm living a life, and it's all part of it. And that's actually been something I've been thinking about for the last 4 or 5 years, that this is my life in totality. It's not separate pieces.
And we get one of them. Sorry, people, we get one of them. Yeah. So, and for those of you that have read my book or listened to this podcast enough, I definitely took the escape, jump off a precipice with no parachute and no safety net approach to reinvention. But I really love that this conversation is a reminder that you don't necessarily have to do that. However, in my opinion, you do have to live the one life that you're given. And sometimes all it takes to do that a little bit better, more meaningful, is to make the choice to change the lens. There you go. I'm going to ask you one more question. Let's give everybody one last little piece of wisdom. I'm going to get the most out of you as I possibly can while I have you captive. I'm curious, what is maybe like a mantra or a lens? That's the best way to put it. What's a lens that you've changed that really shifted everything for you in life and work?
That the story that I was telling myself of everything I had to do and I should do has to be looked at. It's all about the should. And when the word should comes out, it's an immediate trigger for me to look at what I just said and what the real truth is, versus the narrative I may have going in my head. So the thing that shifted me was looking at the word should and everything surrounding it.
All it takes sometimes is one word. Yeah. The next time I should or I have to comes out of your mouth, I guarantee you're going to think about the two of us. Vicki, we did our job today.
Woohoo!
Woo-hoo! And on that note, we're going to wind things down and say one more time, Vicki, thank you so much for being here, sharing your wisdom, and actually sharing your story and the level of vulnerability with it, because I want to appreciate that. And to think it is, a big piece of evidence in this whole idea of like, we have one life. Don't segregate it. And so I appreciate all that you're doing and putting out there in the world to help others do the same.
Thank you. This has been great fun, and I just love talking to you.
We could have a show of our own. Okay, something to talk about. Teaser for everyone. No, just kidding. But if this did resonate with you, I would love for you to follow both of us on LinkedIn. Hit us up if we can help you, or if you want to share something that you're shooting all over yourself right now and need some help through. That is what people like Vicki and I are here for. And do not forget that Scary Good, Discovering Life Beyond the Sunday Scaries is available to you wherever books are sold. And it also might be a little help through a challenging time or the need for perspective. In the meantime, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next Monday for another episode of No More Mondays.